We all love an easy and flavorful side dish. An easy Greek couscous pasta salad is the answer to that need. Toss this together in 20 minutes and serve it all year long. Full of delicious Greek flavors and perfect for serving at room temperature or chilled, this is going to be your new favorite side dish this year. To begin this recipe, we're going to cook the couscous first, so that can be going while we chop and prep all of our veggies. To a medium-sized pot, I'm adding 2 cups of water to the pot, a pinch of salt, and about a tablespoon's worth of butter. Once at a boil, you're going to add 1 cup of the couscous. Turn it down to medium heat, cover, and let it cook until al dente. While that's cooking, we're going to go ahead and chop all of our veggies. First, we'll start with the cucumber. I'm using mini cucumbers here, but you can use any cucumber that you like. I just like to cut these into thin strips and then chop them into tiny bites. We want to make sure that all the vegetables are around the same size so that when you bite into everything, you're going to have an even size of veggies per bite and not one thing big and one thing small. So we're just going to cut these into little bite-sized chunks, and we're going to add about a cup of cucumber straight into a large bowl. Next are the cherry tomatoes. We're going to use about a cup of cherry tomatoes. I like to half and quarter these depending on the size. If they're smaller, just go ahead and half them. They're larger, I like to quarter them. Next up is the red onion. So for this, I actually just like to really thinly slice. If you have a mandolin, this would be perfect for this, but I'm gonna use a really sharp knife and just really thinly paper slice the red onion and add it to the bowl. This is the only thing I'm not gonna chop up really little. I like to leave this in the half form. I think it just looks pretty, but you can chop it up a little bit finer if you don't like a bigger chunk of onion. Next up is my personal favorite, the olives. I just buy a jar of already pitted Kalamata olives. You can roughly dice these all up or just slice them in half, add them to a bowl. We're gonna use about a cup of this as well. And then last is the feta. I personally like to buy a block of feta and chop it into tiny cubes instead of using the crumbles, but you definitely can use the crumble feta to make this a little bit easier if you prefer. As you see here, I'll cut it in half and then turn it over, cut it into long thin strips, rotate it again, cut it into cubes. The recipe calls for about a half a cup of feta, but I added a little more here just because I personally like extra cheese. So a half to a full cup, just depending on your personal preference. Next up, we're gonna make a super simple dressing. When I was making this, I actually doubled the amount of dressing to be able to use it for something else. So just disregard the double measurements, but to a Pyrex measuring cup, add a 1/4 cup of olive oil, the juice of half of a lemon, around 2 or 3 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, and then we're gonna add some fresh herbs, about 2 or 3 teaspoons of freshly chopped and minced chives, and about a half a teaspoon of fresh oregano. Then we're gonna add a couple spices, around a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper, and then about a pinch or 1/8 of a teaspoon of red pepper flakes. But we're gonna go ahead and give this a good whisk so everything is mixed together and then set it aside. Once the couscous is fully cooked and al dente, remove it from the heat, give it a fluff with a fork or spoon, and then we're gonna add that directly into the big bowl of veggies and the feta that I've added in and give it a good toss. Now we'll drizzle the dressing on top and again give it a good toss, and because the pasta is warm at this point, it just kind of helps melt everything together. The feta gets a little creamy and it just creates this beautiful texture and dressing that just coats all the things, and it's so delicious. I could eat this entire bowl just standing at the counter right now. It's so good. Now this can be served right away. As it's a little bit warm, just go ahead and add it to a large platter. Everyone can kind of help themselves. Served at room temperature or stick it in the fridge for a couple of hours until you need it. It's a really easy and versatile recipe for whatever your needs. This is a great side dish or something to bring to a potluck or a summer barbecue. This salad keeps really well for about 2 days and makes really delicious leftovers. You can add some chicken on top to make a really easy and healthy lunch the next day. I know y'all are gonna love it. For the full recipe, head on over to KentuckyLiving.com. Everything is mapped out there for you, plus some other really delicious side dishes that I know you will enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen today, and until next time, I'll talk to y'all very soon.